virtually no wind right now, so I guess I'll do it their way.
Traffic, we're able to have a tows on the 3 mile 45 for 3-4. We have to cross the traffic site.
Arlington Municipal Airport. Automated weather observation. 1612 Zulu. Wind 320 at 03. Visibility 10. Sky condition clear. Temperature 17 Celsius. Dew point 13 Celsius. Altimeter 3009er.
Today was the first full day since the construction work was completed on Taxiway Alpha and the 2 intersections at the ends of the runway that was begun at the beginning of April. Links to my rants on the subject are in the description below. They did an awful lot of work in that time, and while I don't really like the plan that was implemented, the quality of the work that was done was very good. Today was to be the beginning of a heat wave, and I wanted to get out and get some work done and go flying early in order to get home about midday before it got too hot. Also, I needed to get the airplane moved back up to the north end since I need to be out of the other hangar by the end of the month. In addition, I wanted to get some video of the work that was just completed at the north end. It must have been a nice day or something because there were airplanes everywhere. As I was trying to depart, there were at least 4 airplanes in the pattern shooting touch and goes. It was to the point that there was very little space between them to allow me to get out. Ordinarily, under such circumstances, I would just cross 1634 and depart on 29, but since I wanted to get the images today, I really wanted to take off on 34. My general preference is not to pull onto the runway to depart once a landing airplane turns base. I have had some people pull in front of me too close, which made me go around, so I try not to do that to other people. After all, landing aircraft do have the right-of-way. Sometimes, though, students will fly very wide patterns to give themselves time to deal with all of the things that have to be done in preparation for landing. Also, I keep forgetting how slow 172s are. I finally got a gap that would work. One airplane had just landed and was on the go, and the next had just turned base but was pretty far out, so I went. I was faster than the airplane in front of me but kept him in sight. I sidestepped to the right, to better give me the opportunity to keep him in view, of course. The fact that that action also happened to give me the camera angle that I wanted was just a bonus. I was originally just going to go out to Tatoosh Island and come right back, but shortly after I took off, I remembered the Bear Gulch fire and thought it seemed there was maybe a little less smoke than before. I had hoped that the rain we had last Friday would help with the fire, but apparently it didn't help that much. Wednesday morning on the radio, they mentioned that the fire is only about 7% contained and that they still might have to order some evacuations. I then decided to go and check it out, which turned out to be a good idea. There seemed to be at least a small thermal inversion, as it was warmer at 2,000 feet than it was on the ground. I didn't notice it so much on climb out, but I did note that on the ground I was showing 68 degrees and it was 73 degrees at 4,000 feet. At 5,500 feet, it was 67 degrees. In cruise at 85 to 9,500 feet, it was around 55 degrees, give or take a degree or two. The phenomenon was more noticeable, mostly because I noticed it more, on the way back down. At 2,000 feet over Port Susan, it was 80 degrees, but at pattern altitude near the airport, it was 70 degrees. As I approached Lake Cushman, I could see smoke farther into the mountains. I couldn't really see any source of the new smoke until I got much closer. For all the damage, the fire doesn't look that big from very far away. Once again, because of the TFR, I was at 8,500 feet. It really helped out going at this time of the morning with the sun behind me. As I headed into the hills, I could see discolored areas on some of the ridges. Upon closer examination, these turned out to be the areas already burned by the fire. I saw a few small plumes of smoke, but they were widely separated. Maybe that's what makes this fire so hard to fight. That and the fact that it's on some pretty steep and remote terrain. I was able to get some better pictures this time since there wasn't as much smoke as last time. There was a lot of smoke in the air everywhere. A much smaller amount right at the fire site, but just a lot everywhere, north, south, east, west, all over. At least the pictures would have been pretty good if there wasn't so much glare from the canopy. The photos I was able to get are linked in the description below. After viewing the fire, I headed towards Port Angeles, planning to go on out to Tatoosh Island. I passed over Hurricane Ridge on the way, and while there were a lot of people there, I would have expected more. Once clear of the mountains and headed westish, things were a lot less exciting. The air was smooth and cool, and it was a pleasant trip. To take advantage of the cooler temperatures, I was at 8,500 to 9,500 feet, so there wasn't so much to see on the ground. Since I took off much earlier than usual, I was flying into the sun heading home. That's why I quickly rejected the idea of heading east over the mountains. I didn't want to fly into the low morning sun the whole way.